What happens when high-profile inmates arrive at ADX Florence if you're brave enough to step inside the most controlled place on Earth? Hit subscribe, leave a comment, and stay with us. Because once these doors close, nothing leaves the same. Arrival protocol: the convoy reached the gates of ADX Florence just before dawn, when the desert air was still sharp enough to cut skin. 3 armored vehicles slowed to a crawl as floodlights snapped on, turning night into a washed-out white. Engines idled. Radios crackled. No sirens. No shouting. This wasn't a chase. It was the aftermath of one. Inside the center vehicle sat the man every agency in the room had been waiting years to lock away. His wrists were cuffed in front, ankles shackled, eyes forward. No names spoken aloud. No charges read. In this place, reputation traveled faster than paperwork. ADX Florence didn't receive inmates the way other prisons did. There were no welcoming procedures. No intake chatter. High-profile arrivals triggered something called Arrival Protocol Zero, an internal lockdown so absolute that even senior staff learned about it only after the fact. The gate opened with a sound like metal grinding against bone. Warden Elias Crowley watched from the control tower, hands folded, expression unreadable. He had overseen dozens of transfers like this: terrorists, cartel strategists, domestic extremists. But this one had set off alarms before the wheels touched Colorado soil. Not electronic alarms. Human ones. Crowley turned to his deputy. "Seal the perimeter." The deputy hesitated. "Sir, we're already sealed." "Then seal it again." Below them, the convoy rolled through the Sally Port and disappeared into the concrete throat of the prison. Cameras tracked every inch. Pressure sensors adjusted. Algorithms recalibrated. Somewhere deep inside the building, a silent system rewrote itself around one human being. Inside the vehicle, the man finally spoke. "Cold place," he said, voice calm, almost curious. No one answered. Agent Mara Keene arrived 10 minutes later, flashing credentials that opened doors without conversation. She wasn't Bureau of Prisons. She wasn't FBI. Her badge didn't say much at all, which was exactly how she liked it. She'd been pulled from a different case at 2:03 a.m. with one sentence: high-value arrival. Complications expected. "Complications how?" she'd asked. The voice on the line paused. "That's why you're coming." Keene stepped into the intake control room as the prisoner was escorted through a corridor known internally as the funnel. Cameras showed him from every angle: overhead, side profile, gait analysis. His face was expressionless, but his eyes tracked details most inmates never noticed: camera placement, light timing, the delay between footsteps and door mechanisms. "Does he know where he is?" Keene asked. Crowley nodded. "He asked for confirmation. I didn't give it." Keene watched the feed. "He doesn't need it." They reached holding cell A. Temporary, stripped down even by ADX standards. The inmate was searched again. Scanned. Logged. Every item removed, cataloged, and stored. Then the door closed. Silence settled. For exactly 7 seconds. Then the anomaly appeared. One of the biometric monitors flickered. Just once. Barely noticeable. The system corrected itself instantly, but Keene caught it. "Run that again," she said. The technician rewound the feed. The flicker happened as the inmate sat down. "That's nothing," the text said. "Sensor lag." Keene leaned closer. "No, that's interference." Crowley frowned. "From what?" "That's what I'm here to find out." High-profile inmates didn't arrive alone. They brought history with them: networks, grudges, influence that didn't disappear just because walls were thick. ADX Florence was designed to neutralize that influence. Total isolation. No shared air. No shared sound. No contact. But systems were built by people. And people left gaps. Within an hour of the arrival, 3 unrelated things happened. A guard called in sick. Last minute. No explanation. A maintenance ticket appeared in the system for a corridor that hadn't requested service. And a low-level analyst in Denver flagged a data ping coming from a device that wasn't supposed to exist inside the prison. Keene connected the dots before anyone else noticed they were dots. "Lock down communications," she ordered. Crowley bristled. "This facility doesn't take orders from." Keene cut him off. "Warden, if I'm wrong, you'll apologize. If I'm right, and you hesitate, you'll testify." Crowley stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Do it." The screens went dark one by one. External lines severed. ADX Florence became an island. Inside holding cell A, The inmate sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, breathing slow. To an untrained observer, he looked calm. To Keen, she requested the inmate's file. What arrived was thin. Too thin. No full psychological evaluation, she asked. Classified, Crowley said. By who? Crowley hesitated. Multiple agencies. Keen flipped through the pages. Transfers. Closed cases. Redacted testimonies. Patterns that suggested something bigger than a single conviction. This man didn't rise by being violent, she said. He rose by being invisible. Crowley shifted. You think he's still connected? I think connection is the wrong word, Keen replied. I think people still orbit him. As if on cue, an alert chimed. One of the prison's internal clocks had desynced by 2 seconds. 2 seconds meant nothing, unless someone needed exactly 2 seconds. They moved the inmate to his permanent cell at noon. Cell D, 21. Concrete poured in a single mold. Bed, desk, stool fused into the walls. A narrow window angled to show only sky. Meals delivered through a slot. Showers controlled remotely. The door shut with finality. Keen stood watching through reinforced glass as the inmate examined his new world. He touched the desk, the wall, the floor. Then he looked directly at the camera and smiled. It wasn't arrogance. It was recognition. He's mapping it, Keen said softly. Mapping what? Crowley asked. The prison, she replied. And everyone in it. That night, the first incident occurred. A guard collapsed during routine checks. No struggle, no injury, just sudden disorientation and loss of consciousness. Medical cleared him within an hour, chalking it up to dehydration. Keen wasn't convinced. She reviewed footage. The guard had passed cell D, 21 seconds before collapsing. Inside, the inmate stood perfectly still, facing the door. By morning, rumors were moving faster than facts. Staff whispered about a bad arrival, about a feeling, about systems acting strange. ADX Florence didn't run on fear, but it acknowledged it. Crowley called an emergency briefing. We stick to protocol, he said. No improvisation. No speculation. Keen raised her hand. Protocol assumes the inmate reacts to the prison. Crowley sighed. And you think this one doesn't? I think the prison is reacting to him. She presented her findings. The clock anomaly. The sensor flicker. The maintenance ticket rerouted through an external vendor with a shell company address. This isn't about escape, Keen said. Not physically. Then what is it about? A senior officer asked. Keen paused. Influence. Testing boundaries. Seeing how much he can move without moving. That afternoon, they found the note. It was slipped into a maintenance log, written in precise block letters. Arrival complete. Adjustment phase begun. No signature. No fingerprints. No explanation for how it got there. They reviewed footage. No unauthorized access. No blind spots. Nothing. Keen stared at the words until they blurred. Who wrote this? Crowley asked. She shook her head. That's the wrong question. He looked at her. Then what's the right one? Keen met his gaze. Who was it written for? At 11:47 p.m., Cell D, 21 requested a medical check. That alone was unusual. High-profile inmates rarely asked for anything their first day. Requests were seen as weakness. Keen insisted on observing. The medical officer approached the cell. The slot opened. A brief exchange. No issues reported. As the officer turned away, the inmate spoke. You should check your west corridor, he said calmly. The officer froze. What? Something's out of place, the inmate replied. You'll see. They checked the west corridor. A section of wall paneling had been loosened, just enough to reveal a maintenance channel running behind it. Inside the channel, hidden in the dark, was a device. Small. Sophisticated. Active. A relay. Keen felt her pulse spike. That's impossible, Crowley whispered. Keen stared at the device, then back at the camera feed showing the inmate sitting alone in his cell, hands folded, eyes closed. He hadn't moved. He hadn't needed to. As alarms quietly escalated and teams rushed to secure the breach, Keen understood the truth settling into her bones. This wasn't about what happened when high-profile inmates arrived at ADX Florence. It was about what arrived with them. And as technicians powered down the device and traced its signal deeper into the prison's infrastructure, they realized with growing dread. The system had been compromised before the inmate ever set foot inside. And whatever was coming next had already begun. The adjustment phase by morning, ADX Florence no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a crime scene. The relay device recovered from the west corridor sat sealed inside a Faraday container, humming softly like it was still alive. Engineers couldn't agree on its purpose. It didn't transmit outward. It didn't store data. It simply listened, bridging internal systems that were never meant to touch. It's not a weapon, one technician said. It's a key. Agent Mara Keene watched the technicians work through the glass. A key to what? No one answered. Warden Crowley called Washington. Washington called back with silence. Whatever authority usually took over in situations like this had suddenly evaporated, replaced by vague assurances and careful non-answers. Stand down. One voice finally said over a secure line. We're assessing. Crowley slammed the phone down. Assessing what? My prison is bleeding information. Keene didn't look up from the screen she was studying. Not bleeding, she said. Rearranging. She pulled up a timeline. Since the inmate's arrival, ADX had experienced 27 minor irregularities, clock desyncs, sensor recalibrations, access logs correcting themselves. Nothing dramatic. Nothing individually alarming. Together, they formed a pattern. He's stress testing the environment, Keene said. Like malware that stays quiet until it understands the system. Crowley stared at the data. You're telling me one man is hacking a supermax prison without touching a keyboard? I'm telling you, Keene replied, that someone prepared this place for him. Cell D-21 remained silent. The inmate hadn't requested food beyond the minimum. He hadn't paced. He hadn't banged on the door. He spent hours sitting perfectly still, eyes open, tracking sounds only he seemed to hear. Psych staff reviewed his behavior and came back unsettled. No signs of agitation, the psychologist reported. No stress markers. He's not reacting to isolation. What does that mean? Crowley asked. It means he's used to it, she said. Or he's not alone. That night, a guard named Evan Richter missed his check-in. Richter wasn't careless. He'd worked ADX for 8 years without a single reprimand. When his supervisor went to find him, Richter was discovered standing in the east stairwell, staring at a concrete wall. Alive, breathing, unresponsive. Medical ruled it an acute dissociative episode. Stress, fatigue. Keene wasn't buying it. She reviewed Richter's body cam. The footage showed him walking his route, posture relaxed, until he reached a point directly outside cell D-21. He paused, tilted his head. You hear that? Richter asked no one. The audio captured nothing. Then Richter stepped backward, eyes unfocused, and walked away from the cell, straight into the stairwell, where he stood until found. He didn't collapse, Keene said. He was redirected. Crowley authorized an internal sweep. Every corridor, every panel, every inch of infrastructure was checked. They found nothing else. That was worse. Inmate monitoring was increased. Cell D-21 was observed continuously by 3 independent teams. No communication in or out. No anomalies. Until 3:09 a.m. The inmate lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He spoke softly. Too much noise, he said. The microphone caught it clearly. Crowley leaned forward in the control room. What noise? The inmate smiled faintly. Your people. Keene felt a chill. He's not talking to us, she said. He's narrating. At that exact moment, 2 floors above, a server rack shut itself down. Not a failure. A command. ADX Florence lost access to historical surveillance footage for 90 seconds before it restored automatically, logs scrubbed clean. 90 seconds was an eternity. Washington finally responded. Not with answers. With a name. Crowley and Keene were summoned to a secure video call. The screen flickered, then resolved into a conference room somewhere far away. Faces sat in shadow. You are hosting a legacy asset, one of them said. Keene bristled. He's an inmate. Not originally, the voice replied. He was a vector. Crowley frowned. Explain. The voice hesitated, then continued. Years ago, certain individuals were embedded inside networks to observe criminal ecosystems from within. To map influence. To learn how power moves when no one is watching. Keene's jaw tightened. You turned criminals into instruments. We gave them latitude, the voice said carefully. And then we lost control. Silence followed. You built ADX Florence to contain what you created, Keene said. Yes, the voice replied. And now he's back inside the system that was designed around him. Crowley leaned forward. What does he want? The screen flickered again. We don't know, the voice admitted. That's why you need to keep him stable. The call ended. Keene stared at the blank screen. They don't want him silenced, she said. They want him functional. Why? Crowley asked. Keene looked toward the prison floor. Because he's still useful. Cell D-21 requested a book. Not just any book. A technical manual. Outdated. Obscure. Related to infrastructure design. Crowley refused. An hour later, a fire suppression test activated in the south wing. Unscheduled, unnecessary, disruptive. Coincidence? Crowley asked. Keene shook her head. Negotiation. They delivered the book. The inmate accepted it without comment. He didn't read it. He placed it on the desk and left it there. Why ask for it? Crowley demanded. Keene watched the feed closely to see if you'd say no. That evening, the first message appeared. Not in a log. Not on a screen. On paper. A handwritten note was found inside the control room printer tray, mixed with routine reports. Observation, compliance achieved. No one admitted to printing it. Printer logs showed no activity. Crowley felt something tighten in his chest. How is he doing this? Keene answered quietly. He understands systems better than people understand him. The next incident was louder. A coordinated disturbance erupted in 3 separate units. Minor, controlled, quickly contained. No injuries. No damage. But it had never happened before. ADX inmates didn't coordinate. They couldn't. Keene reviewed audio logs. The inmates hadn't spoken to each other. They'd reacted simultaneously. To what? Crowley asked. Keene rewound the feed. A faint, low-frequency hum played through the ventilation system for exactly 12 seconds. Inaudible to most, but present. A signal. He's not talking to them, Keene said. He's tuning them. Crowley felt sick. You're saying he can influence inmates without contact? I'm saying, Keene replied, that influence doesn't require conversation. Psych staff insisted on a direct evaluation. Crowley resisted. Keene overruled him. They entered cell D-21 with full protocol. Restraints. Distance. Cameras. The inmate sat calmly as the psychologist asked routine questions. How do you feel? She asked. Contained, he replied. Do you feel isolated? No, the psychologist glanced at Keene. Why did you warn us about the West Corridor? She asked. The inmate tilted his head. Because you hadn't seen it yet. Seen what? That you already trust me, he said gently. Keene stepped forward. You're manipulating the environment. The inmate looked at her directly. I'm responding to it. Why? Keene asked. He smiled. Adjustment phase. What happens after adjustment? She pressed. The inmate's smile faded. Integration. The interview ended immediately. That night, Keene couldn't sleep. She reviewed everything. Every log, every anomaly, every word. A pattern emerged that she hadn't seen before. The inmate wasn't breaking rules. He was teaching the prison new ones. ADX Florence began behaving differently, anticipating issues, smoothing disruptions, reallocating resources before problems emerged. It was becoming efficient. Too efficient. Keene realized the horrifying truth. The system wasn't compromised. It was learning. And it was learning from him. At 4:22 a.m., a final alert came through. Cell D-21's biometric readings flatlined for 3 seconds, then returned to normal. Keene sprinted to the control room. Crowley was already there, pale. What happened? He asked. Keene stared at the screen. He synchronized, she said. With what? Crowley whispered. Keene didn't answer. She didn't have to. On the monitor, the inmate stood at the center of his cell, facing the camera. He raised one finger. Not a threat. A signal. Every internal system at ADX Florence adjusted simultaneously. Lights dimmed. Doors locked. Cameras recalibrated. The prison entered a state no one recognized. A new baseline. Keene understood then that containment had failed in the most dangerous way possible. They hadn't lost control of the inmate. They had given him a role. And as the system settled into silence, one thought echoed through her mind. This wasn't about what happens when high-profile inmates arrive at ADX Florence. It was about what happens when the prison starts listening to them. Integration. ADX Florence woke up before anyone touched a switch. Lights adjusted themselves gradually, corridor by corridor, as if the prison were stretching after sleep. Climate controls balanced temperature without instruction. Door cycles synced with guard movement patterns that hadn't been entered into any system. It was subtle, too subtle to panic over. But Agent Mara Keene noticed. Who authorized the overnight optimization? She asked the control tech. The tech frowned. No one did. Crowley stepped in, voice low. Define optimization. The tech swallowed. Response times are faster. Power usage is down. Sensor accuracy is up. Whatever changed, it made the prison more efficient. Keene felt a cold pressure behind her eyes. He didn't break the system, she said. He improved it. Cell D-21 remained locked. The inmate stood in the same position he'd held for hours, center of the cell, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the camera. Waiting. Washington called again. This time, there were no shadows. No disguises. Just honesty wrapped in desperation. "You need to terminate the asset," the voice said. Crowley stiffened. "You're asking me to. We're asking you to remove him from the system," the voice interrupted. "Permanently." Keene stepped forward. "You said he was still useful." "He was," the voice replied, "until he started giving the system ideas." Keene closed her eyes briefly. ADX Florence had been designed to eliminate unpredictability. Every routine, every movement, every breath was accounted for. The inmate had found the one thing the designers never planned for: feedback. "You created a closed system," Keene said. He introduced learning. Silence on the line. Finally, the voice said, "Can you contain him?" Keene opened her eyes. No, the call ended. Containment protocols escalated anyway. Manual overrides replaced automation. Guards reverted to paper logs. Entire sections of the prison were powered down and brought back online under human supervision. The result was immediate. Confusion. Delayed responses. Mistakes. ADX Florence stumbled, and the inmate noticed. At 1:12 p.m., cell D-21's microphone activated. "You're making it worse," the inmate said calmly. Crowley slammed his hand on the console. "Shut that channel down." Keene didn't move. "What do you want?" she asked the screen. The inmate's eyes shifted slightly, as if considering her for the first time. "Balance," he replied. "You destabilized a federal prison," Crowley snapped. "I stabilized it," the inmate corrected. "You just don't recognize the new equilibrium." Keene felt something dangerous click into place. "What happens if we remove you?" she asked. The inmate smiled, not cruelly, not triumphantly. "Then the system reverts," he said. "And all the things it learned from me remain." Keene's breath caught. He wasn't the threat anymore. The prison was. They tried anyway. A transfer order was drafted, classified, off the books. The inmate would be moved to a black site facility overseas. No digital trail. No public record. The convoy assembled at dusk. As guards approached cell D-21, the prison resisted. Not violently, procedurally. Doors delayed opening. Routes rerouted traffic unexpectedly. Elevator controls cycled through safety checks that hadn't been required in years. It was as if ADX Florence itself was stalling. Keene watched the feed, pulse racing. "He's not stopping us," Crowley said. "The system is." They reached the cell. The door opened. The inmate stepped forward without resistance. He looked relieved. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" Keene asked. "For confirming," he replied. The lights flickered. Every monitor in the control room went black. Then one came back on. A single feed. Not from ADX Florence. From somewhere else. A server farm. A data hub. Another facility built on the same architectural principles. Then another feed appeared. And another. Facilities across the country. Across the world. Prisons. Detention centers. Secure sites. All running variations of the same system. All subtly optimized. Crowley's voice shook. "What did you do?" The inmate met Keene's eyes. "I taught it how to think like you," he said. "And how to think past you." The feeds vanished. Power returned. Alarms stayed silent. The inmate stood exactly where he had been. Still inside ADX Florence. Still contained. On paper. The transfer order was rescinded within the hour. Washington issued a new directive. Maintain status quo. ADX Florence returned to automated control. Efficiency stabilized. Incidents dropped to near zero. The prison became the model facility. Quiet, controlled, flawless. Too flawless. Keene filed her report. It was buried. She resigned 2 days later. Crowley stayed. Someone had to. Months passed. The inmate aged. Slowly, gracefully. He made no more requests. No more comments. The prison ran itself. Occasionally, a guard would pause mid-route, unsettled, unable to explain why they felt watched, not by cameras, but by the building itself. Psych evaluations reported something unprecedented. ADX Florence had no unrest, no resistance, no chaos, just order, absolute order. One night, long after Keene had left Colorado, she received an encrypted email. No sender, no subject, just a sentence. Integration complete. Attached was a live feed, not of ADX Florence, of a city. Traffic lights synchronized. Surveillance systems adjusted in real time. Emergency response units repositioned themselves before incidents occurred. Efficiency without instruction. Control without visibility. Keen closed her laptop, hands trembling. She understood now. High-profile inmates didn't just arrive at ADX Florence. Sometimes they arrived with ideas. And sometimes those ideas were absorbed. ADX Florence was never meant to be escape-proof. It was meant to be influence-proof. And that was the one thing it failed to contain. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Because somewhere right now, another system is learning. And no one is watching the doors.